everyone. Welcome to Adventures in Shalom. This is the podcast for Equip Mozambique, where we hear from Jon and Carla Reinagel, who, with their team, have pioneered one of the most innovative mission centers in the world. It's more than just a mission center, but they're going to explain more of what Equip Mozambique is. I'm your host, Victoria Hagni. I help coordinate some of the stateside things with Equip Mozambique. Since they're all the way across the world, we kind of are getting the American perspective here. But I want to hand it over to Jon and Carla. If you can tell the people about who you are and what Equip Mozambique is.
I'm Jon Reinagel, and this is my wife, Carla.
Yep.
And we're the founders of Equip Mozambique. Victoria, we've known you for almost 15 years now. And so some of this journey in history.
That long?
Yeah,
wow.
Back when you were working at the mission. I think that's the first time we connected.
Long time ago, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with another kind of poverty alleviation ministry. But yeah, really kind of exciting to connect in so many ways over the years. And yeah, we've got 3 kids, 2 teenagers and an 8-year-old.
And so yeah, we've been here in Mozambique for about 15 years total now, and been able to see God move in just really amazing ways. But a couple things about me. Something factual is when I was 9 years old, my family moved to Russia right after the Iron Curtain fell, and so I got to grow up, part of my childhood on the mission field, which forever changed the trajectory of my life. And then something quirky about me is that even though I don't like cold, I love penguins. They're my favorite animal, and I just think they're delightful.
We have a bit of a battle going on which one's that are our favorite birds. So I like puffins more. She likes penguins. Yeah,
it's been a rivalry since we were dating. So.
Right. Yeah. So one fact about me. So I guess one of the things, I haven't had a TV since I was a teenager. So we've just never had a TV in our house. We've had to find other creative things to do, which we get to share a little bit about those as well. Yeah. And one thing quirky. I collect weird mugs. So this happens to be Putin. I do have a list of dictators. So tune into other podcast episodes to see just what or who I will be bringing. So Carla talked a little bit about growing up in Russia, so I had to bring this one.
There you go.
Not because I'm a fan of him, but yeah.
To clarify.
That could be misleading.
Yes. It could be, actually. Maybe the video will be censored.
So how many dictator mugs do you have?
Oh, that's a great question. Quite a few. I mean, I've got Kim Jong-un. Also got a couple other mugs. I'll surprise you.
I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Thank you so much, Victoria. So first, I'll start with Equip Mozambique. So we are here to find and empower local leaders and local people who may not even realize they're leaders yet. How to look at the world around them and the problems and the challenges around them and see them as opportunities for God to use them to break in and become the solution. And so over the 11 years, going on 12 years that we've been doing this, we have worked with these amazing Mozambican leaders who have found solutions to problems in poverty alleviation and education, getting people more access to the Bible and resources for studying the Bible better, solutions in agriculture, justice and human rights issues, health, grassroots projects, developments. Like these people, when you set them free, they are so creative, and it has been amazing to see how they're bringing wholeness to the brokenness around them.
Well, you guys are such interesting people. And so I'm so excited to talk to you about your journey and just all that you have done in the last, 15 years that I've known you. And was Equip Mozambique, how old is it now officially?
11 going on 12.
Right. Yeah, 11 years old now. Yeah. So we started it in 2014. We met you in 2011.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a full tween now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's talk about how y'all got started. What got you to you call it stepping out of the boat and getting into mission. So yeah, you can even take us back to college days if you want, and how this all came to be.
Yeah, so like I said, I grew up, part of my childhood on the mission field. My parents were really involved in Youth with a Mission, YWAM. And so I grew up just with this passion and kind of knowledge that I would probably end up somewhere besides the States at some point in my life. My mom, I was homeschooled. My mom would give us like missionary biographies to read. And so I was just always so inspired by the people that gave up everything to bring God's kingdom in the places that need it the most. And so that was what really inspired me. And so even when I went to Bible college when I was 16 and studied missions. And then when I was 18, I went to Bangladesh for 6 months and just kind of kept this passion, this journey going. And then ended up going to what was UMR at the time. Now it's Missouri S&T, the university I studied at, thinking, I'm not going to meet anybody here interested in missions. But first week, I met Jon, and
first week of college.
The first week of college, I met Jon,
wow.
And I was,
Destiny.
So I was just laser focused at that point, and so I was just like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna get my degree and go into missions right afterwards. And so I asked him, hey, what are you studying and what do you want to do? He's like, I'm gonna get my degree and go into missions. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And so it was just really fascinating how God brought us together through that, common vision that we had for our futures.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit the opposite of Carla. I kind of kept following one too many of God's leadings, and I found myself on the mission field, basically. So it was very interesting. I found the Lord when I was 18. My parents were pastors, and I grew up in the church. But I didn't really make a decision to follow God up until then. And we grew up in a church called the Worldwide Church of God, which was it had some strange theology. We worshiped on Saturdays, thought everybody else was going to hell, and mostly believed more in the Old Testament than the New Testament. And when I was 11, the entire church turned around and my parents sat me down. I was like, we don't really know what we believe anymore.
Wow.
But we're gonna, we're gonna just be on this journey. And for me, that was, it was very eye opening for me. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll pick this up when I'm older then, I guess. And I didn't know a lot about faith. I knew a lot about the Bible. But I did decide like I'm either going 100% or 0%. So I'm not going to just go on Sunday mornings. If this is true, I'm going to give my whole life. And so that happened when I was 18, and I was planning on still studying aerospace engineering, being an aerospace engineer, and I was on the right track, going and getting my engineering degree. I talked to some people from Boeing, and they thought, hey, we've got an internship lined up for you, and they said just fill out the application, and we'll get you a summer internship. And I'm filling out the application and I'm about to send it. And one of my friends comes by my dorm room and says, hey, we're going to the Baptist Student Union. They're talking about missions. Do you want to come? And I'm like, oh, I guess I can proofread this later. So I go there and I hear about somebody talking about their mission trip. And I felt this like strange warming in my heart. It was like, well, just in case this is God, I'm going to step out on it. And so, it was really interesting. I found myself in the Philippines for 2 months, and I signed up for this mission trip back when I thought the Philippines was like in the Caribbean next to Florida. And then it turns out it's on the opposite side of the world.
On the other side of the world.
Right. I thought I was getting, going just a little bit outside my comfort zone, and I ended up being completely way outside my comfort zone. But yeah, we done a lot since then. Right after that mission trip was when I met Carla, and we've been pretty laser focused since then.
Yeah. So it's got to be kind of a rare thing to have two engineers looking to do missions, right? Like that was not a very common thing at what was then UMR.
True, but clarification, I was not studying engineering. In spite of it being an engineering school, my major was English and education. And
she would say she's a grammatical engineer.
Yes, I said my degree was grammatical engineering, just to get a hint of respect from people. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Well, they respected you for like 30 seconds before they realized, wait, what is that?
Well, all that aside, still being surrounded by, a STEM school, engineering
Right.
school, you guys probably were a rarity, right?
Yeah. Well, and the missions world needs more engineers, actually. So engineers think in systems. And it's actually something we've been hearing ever since we got here was like, oh, most people are just come because like they want to help the poor, but they're not thinking like, how do we help all of the poor, not just like that one next person in front of you. And so that's been a bit of a gift.
In missions in general, sometimes we think we have to be a specific type of person to go into missions or think a certain way. And so you guys were already kind of the odd men out. But can you tell me about how you got to Africa? And I think there was like a wedding before that and all of that. So it's kind of catch me up on what happened there.
Was that our wedding? Yeah. So we got married and we felt like the Lord was calling us to Africa.
On our honeymoon.
On our honeymoon, yes.
Oh, wow.
So
there you go.
We weren't really sure where we were going at the wedding, but we did ask everybody, like, instead of gifts, please just give us money for a plane ticket. And so we were able to cancel out all of our student debt and go debt free. But we had almost nothing. We went that first year. It was 9 months, and we had less than $200 with us. And then we couldn't even get into Mozambique at that time. We had to fly into South Africa. We didn't know a single person on the continent at that point. So it was very much in faith. That we kind of stepped out. Worked. We went throughout Mozambique for about 9 months, just working with different mission organizations. Oh, yeah.
If anyone doesn't know where Mozambique is, it's this little one over here on the east coast, southeast coast of Africa. Yes.
Yeah, so that's Mozambique. It's about twice the size of California. So if you think of the entire the size of the east coast of the U.S., that's about how large it is. And we started in South Africa, which is down here, because we didn't get visas in time to go to Mozambique. That's a story for another day. But we were able to find another missionary and drive in. And I can remember the first meal that we had when we got there was it was rice and chicken feet.
Not chicken legs, chicken feet.
Just the feet, and so you would eat the little pads off of the feet. And I thought, oh my, like we have signed up for a different life. I was like, I don't know if I can do chicken feet for 9 months.
Wait, so was this still on the honeymoon?
So this is, well, I mean, you could maybe kind of see that. So this was 7 months later. So we got married in May, and then in December we were in Africa. So
yeah.
Okay. And so back me up to why Africa? Did you guys pray and just say, Lord, give us a country to go visit?
Right. So originally both of us had done, like we said, our kind of our short-term missions experiences in Asia. And so both of us thought we would be back in Asia somewhere. So I was in Bangladesh, he was in Philippines, and we both had just great experiences, loved it, thought that was where we would end up. But then we read a book by some people in Mozambique, and we were just really inspired by what God was doing in this part of the world too, and just wanted to come see it firsthand. And so we came for that first visit of 9 months, and felt like God, kept saying, it's like, oh, well, put in a little bit more commitment. And so after that first, period, we put in another commitment for 2 years. And so it ended up being, close to 3 years by the end, with that other org. And so that's how we, shifted from Asia to Africa.
Yeah. The book was called Always Enough. And it just looked like a completely different style of missions than what we had seen before. It was really kind of interesting to go on the ground in Mozambique and to see just major needs. So it was very kind of broken country, I guess. And just to see the needs all around, and that we can help out with at least some of those, was good.
Yeah. Okay, so as we keep moving in your story, you have a couple of mission experiences, and then you decide to go to Mozambique like more full time. Is that right?
Yeah. So we were in, we were in Mozambique, and by then, again, Carla had a couple mission experiences with some organizations. I had with others as well. And I don't actually really like the word missionary for a couple reasons. But one of them is because it doesn't tell you at all what goes on overseas, right?
Yeah.
I think the better way of saying it is probably we did a lot of things. Carla taught English and for a couple months in China. Where can I say that now?
I think so.
Okay, yeah. She taught English in China. Yes, somewhere in East Asia. And she taught English where she couldn't really share the gospel directly at all for those months, and she had to be specifically asked by her classmates, but she had to sneak in different cultural things, with her students. And then I did kind of power evangelism, healing crusades, and evangelism trips in Brazil. And we did ministry to the poor. And, Carla was working with music ministry. I had been doing theater. Like we did get the entire broad spectrum of what missions can be.
Yeah.
And so long term, we landed on a mission base in Mozambique, and we were leading a pastoral training center and an orphanage, and we were very much using our administrative gifts that we had there, and so it was a lot of administration. And there was a lot of things that really impacted us during that time. It was a very critical time for us, but for us, it was a bit of a shock as well because we were on a mission base. What we started to realize was that there were people that were they were one thing to us, and then as soon as they left the base, then they were another person entirely. And we started to really wonder, could we actually do discipleship and live on a mission base? And we felt like we were called to live among the people. And that was, we felt like the walls really hindered discipleship. And it was more of these, kind of come in with your church mask and then you're a different person outside. And it took us several years to actually realize that portion of it. But we started to have a major philosophy shift as well, around development versus relief. So, relief is really good for specific situations, natural disasters, crises, and things like that. But the kind of disasters we saw in Mozambique were kind of continuous. And relief work wasn't really doing what it should have, right? And it was breeding a lot of dependence. And I can remember there was this one time where well, actually, just because of where we were, we had the amount of money that we gave for mercy ministry, and it was just to whoever needed it. And people would be at my door from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Or later, right? Just coming and asking. And at one point, I was about to break. So, we got a committee of Mozambicans together and said, okay, you guys deal with the mercy ministry money. You just let me know who really needs it. And they completely inversed my priority list. So I had food as like the number one priority. If you haven't eaten for a couple days, then we would make sure you got fed. And when I told the Mozambicans that, they started laughing, and all of them started to talk about, the time I went without food for 3 days, or the time I went with a whole week without food. There was
it's just life here. What are you talking about? That's not an emergency,
right? And they said, it's just a mismanagement of your finances, right? You didn't plan for the whole month, and that's the way that they saw it. And I was, and I asked them, well, what are the major emergencies? And they said hospital bills, anything to do with medicine, because you didn't plan that. And so the community needs to come around you and help. And it completely changed my perspective. And I mean, our ministry was doing lots of food outreach, right? But we were doing almost nothing on medical. And so I started to realize that oftentimes donor perspectives and the community perspectives on what the major needs are can be extremely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, another big thing was us coming to this realization, like Jon was saying, that chronic poverty does not need relief. In fact, not only is it not the correct response, it can even be damaging. because of that dependency that it creates. It robs the recipient of any form of dignity of being able to earn a living for themselves. It just, you're telling the person, you need me, and then they're accepting that message and saying, oh yeah, you're right, I do need you, like I am helpless, I could never do this without you. And we just saw like that was breaking everything, and it was not what we felt God wanted for us in our time in Mozambique.
Yeah, so there's a verse in Matthew, in the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus says, "Give to everyone who asks." And I was doing that literally. I gave to everybody who asked. And I had done it in the US and other places too. But I wasn't surrounded by nearly as much poverty. And so when the Mozambicans found out about that, they would start asking for crazy things. And after a while, Carla was like, "Jon, you need to keep more of your clothes around, right? You can't just keep giving away your extra stuff." I can remember there was this one guy that was, we were talking, and he asked for my shoes. And I gave him my shoes, and he started laughing and pointing at me, right? And like making fun of me for it. And I walked barefoot back to my house, and I was like, we have got to have missed something here, right? I was pretty angry at God at that time. I was like, God, you're destroying the people here, and this just doesn't seem to be the best way to work. Yeah. It was only a while after that I realized like I could be misunderstanding the verse a little bit. But I think there's a lot of grace that God gives if you're trying to do things out of a good heart.
Yeah. I think all of us who have worked with in nonprofit work or any type of work like that have probably felt like that, where you're just like, I'm trying to follow what I think is in the Bible, what is biblically correct. And so tell me more about that process of finding what God actually says about poverty, and how you kind of found those boundaries and a different philosophy on how you were called to serve.
Yeah, so it was around that season that we read another book that changed our lives called When Helping Hurts. And we realized that is exactly what we were doing. We were trying to help, but we were actually hurting. And this book was really amazing. And it talks about how poverty is not just a lack of money or a lack of stuff or a lack of food or a lack of a house. It is a broken relationship. In fact, it's 4 broken relationships. It's your relationship with God and your identity in Him broken. It's your relationship with your community broken. It's relationship with creation broken. And it's your relationship with yourself broken. And how to truly address poverty, you have to address these relationships, not just, oh, you don't have food, so let me give you food. Like, that's not fixing the person and the brokenness that they have that you can't see. And so this book, like, we read it and we cried because, like I said, we're like, oh no, we're the monsters. And we were it just flipped our paradigm of like what we should be doing in this drastically poor context. I mean, Mozambique has been in the bottom 10 of the world as one of the poorest, least developed countries for decades. And so it is a chronic generational issue that is, very different than like what Jon was saying about when you have a disaster and you need relief, or if you have a war suddenly and you need relief. That's really different. But when it's just generation after generation after generation, you need a different approach. You need to get people out of that situation. You need to restore their relationships and get them to believe in themselves that they could do something about it, to start thinking creatively and out of the box and out of doing things the way they've always been. Because if you want new results, you have to do new things. And so we saw that the need was for development, not relief, where you train and teach and disciple and you give skills. And it takes so much more time and effort. So, I mean, donors love relief because like you get to come in, drop a bunch of food, pat yourself on the back, take photos and leave. And you're like, I did something amazing. But to actually walk alongside the poor for years and say, hey, you're stuck, but if you are willing to get unstuck, I will walk with you as long as it takes to get you there. And, we realized that was what we were called to. And that's what we wanted to pivot and be able to do more.
Yeah, and even in those first couple of years in Mozambique, I started to see those kind of ministry opportunities as well. So I had a Bible study, and like there weren't that many people coming to the Bible study, but I started to offer IT and tech classes, just kind of basic computer courses, and the room was absolutely packed whenever I do tech classes, and then everybody started coming to my Bible studies. It's like, what is going on here? Right? And so I started asking, and they're like, well, you were giving them away for free, so we didn't know if there was anything valuable there. But then you started giving away these tech classes, and those were very valuable. And so we decided to go to the Bible studies as well. And I started to realize that the people that I gave money to, like, I didn't feel closer to them, and then those aren't the people that I've really kept connection with, or that they've kept connection with me. Because the relationship kind of, if you keep asking, then it can really put a major strain on the relationship. But the training relationships, the people are so grateful. Even if you stop doing training and education, then they'll still come back 5 or 10 years later and thank you for the time that you put into their life. And so we started to see ways that we could give to be a blessing to people, that in a way that builds our relationships with them, and in a way that makes us more cheerful givers, right? So all of us have given in ways that we're like, oh, I don't know if I want to give, right? Again. And then we've all given in ways that we're like, oh, if I could do that 100 times, then that would be incredible. And so there's just such a major call to give in the Bible that I don't think we spend enough time actually growing and developing our own kind of giving muscles, if that makes sense, to find those specific places where you can help more than others. And something that really helped me, Carla talked about the book When Helping Hurts. There's a concept of asset-based community development. And I love this. Like, I came out on the mission field thinking that we were bringing light into darkness, and we were here to fight a battle, rescue people from darkness and get them saved. And there is a portion of that, but so much more of what we do is it's a discovery process. Our assumption now isn't that we're going in and we're the first people to ever share anything about the gospel with them. We are one of many people probably that has connected with them, and we assume that God's already working in their life, and that we're not going to be there forever, but we have a specific role to play in their life. And asset-based community development looks at the assets that people have, and it's really focused on, okay, what do you have and how can we grow that? Instead of kind of this needs-based assessment. So almost all kind of relief work it's only about the need, and it really takes each individual person and says, okay, what's your need? What's the need here? And then you think, okay, well, if they have a need, then I have to fill it. But so oftentimes people have gifts that God has placed in their life, and calling that out of them is a major ministry in itself.
Yeah, I just love being able to relate this to Jesus feeding the 5,000, where the disciples looked around and the need was enormous, and they realized that the resources they had could never meet the need. And Jesus just says, "Well, what do you have?" It's like, don't look at what do you need. He says, "What do you have?" And, when you surrender what you do have into his hands, even if it looks pathetically small compared to the need, he multiplies it. He does so much with it when we're just willing. And so we try to teach that here too. We don't come in and say, hey, what do you need? We say, hey, what do you have? And sometimes all people have is a dream. And we're like, that's awesome. Let's figure out what you need to make that dream come true. And that's become our way of approaching what we do.
Yeah, it's so cool to hear you guys say that, because I feel like that's one of the major markers you have left on my life is even when we've worked together on just different projects I've done in the US, every time I've talked to you guys about them, it's been like a mindset shift of because I graduated school like a lot of millennials with a lot of student debt, and so to like start a business, to start working freelance, things like that felt impossible because I had no like seed money, and but you guys always would go back to, what do you have? You're in an engineering school. There's a lot of kids that aren't reached. You have this ability to teach. So you always looked at, what do you have? And so even to this day, when I start something or when I feel like the Lord leading me to entrepreneur in some area, it's never like, I do get the fear of like, I don't have enough. I can't, like, I don't have the resources, connections, or money. But then I go back to like, how do Jon and Carla think? Like, it's always about, what do you have? And it's truly like, I think it's a life-changing mindset, because if you guys are doing it in Mozambique, in one of the, poorest countries in the world, we should be doing this in America. We should be thinking this way here. Like, if we can just change to honestly, like, the biblical way of thinking about it, it can change your life. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. So I wanted to go back just a little bit, about Equip Mozambique, because Jon, you had said you started teaching classes with tech and that kind of thing. So, when you were working with the other ministry and, it was more about relief, and you guys felt called to more of like discipleship and development, did you just have this like vision from the sky of like, let's do Equip Mozambique? Like, how did that even come to be, of like, maybe I'll start a class?
No, that's a great question. So the whole time I was there, I felt like I was dying. There was so much admin work, and it was very hard to do. And I mean, not in our native language, and there were just emergencies all over the place. I had my life threatened a couple times. We had some encounters with some government snipers. I'll share that at some point, different episodes.
And even on a personal level, like we were struggling with just really awful toxic relationships with the other missionaries around us, with the other churches around us, where like we didn't have any great, strong, healthy relationships that were deep and trusting, and it was just really hard season to go through, where I mean, some of the people were well-meaning, but they were also just really broken. And so, to be completely honest with you, when we left in 2011, after those 3 years, we were burnt out. We were burnt to a crisp. And when I say burnt, I don't talk like, I like to use the analogy of the toast that it comes out of the toaster, there's a little black, you can scrape a little off. And like, no, we were charcoal. Like, we were through and through. We went through this long, both of us at the same time, long spiritual dry spell too, where we just, we didn't really feel close to God, even in the midst of all of the suffering and the struggle. And so we came back bitter, broken, and to be completely honest with you, saying we are never going back to Mozambique.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was, I got on that airplane so relieved to leave this place behind, and thought I would never, ever come back. And so God took us on an amazing journey after that for a season in the States of healing and forgiveness, and trying to restore us, and then trying to restore our hope, trying to restore our vision. And it was only after that the possibility of first being willing to come back, and then to have these inspirations, these ideas, these visions for what Equip Mozambique could be. It's only then that started.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so we were missionaries for 3 years there, and I can remember just not really feeling God's presence the whole time, and it was just a real frustrating factor for me, like, above and beyond this other stuff. And at some point, year 2, I had one of my dad's friends used to be an Anglican overseer of all of the missionaries in Africa. And when my dad was sharing some of the stuff we were going through, he's like, "Hey, I wanted to give you a donation so you guys can go on a vacation." And we wrote him back an email saying, "Thank you so much for the donation, but like we've got a bunch of stuff coming up, and we could probably go on vacation in a couple months." And he sent another message saying, take the vacation by Friday, or I take the money back. And so we did. We went on a vacation for a couple days, and it was in that time where I realized that I wasn't just kind of far away from God, but I was like really angry and bitter with Him, and kind of putting us in this place, and like I couldn't feel His Holy Spirit at all. And it was a hard time. We were just kind of doing raw faith, I think is probably the best way of saying it.
I called it raw obedience at that time. Obedience. Like it wasn't even on faith at that point. It was like, God told me to be here, so by golly, I'm here, whether I like it or not. And so just go through the grind. But my heart wasn't in it. And I wouldn't even say my faith was in it. I was just like, well, here I am. I'll get my task list done, and then go crash in bed again.
Yeah, it was a very discouraging kind of time for us. But we got back to the States, and one of the things that hurt the most was some of the times I made either the wrong decisions, or I felt like I could have helped other people. So there were, in the U.S., you don't really live dealing with emergencies. Right. A lot of the emergencies are pretty easy, simple things, I guess. And then when you get to somewhere like Mozambique, there's people dying around you.
All the time.
All the time. Yeah. And, we were first responders on multiple car crashes. We had a situation where the leader of our Bible school passed away in a car accident. In our orphanage, we had multiple kids dying of malaria. There was a missionary that died of malaria also. I had malaria. So there was a lot of these kind of things. And there were people that I didn't give money to, and then they ended up dying because they didn't get the medications. And I carried this major burden on myself for those things. And I just got back, and I was like, yeah, I guess I'll share the grocery store thing too. So the last like 4 months when we knew we were going back, Carla and I would just kind of sit around and like dream about food, and be like, okay, well, what's the first thing you're gonna eat? Because like we ate beans and rice like most of the time.
So it wasn't just chicken feet. We did branch out to
that's true.
Beans and rice was kind of our fare for the next 3 years.
Right. So it was mostly beans and rice, or kind of like spinach and rice. So very, very rarely did we have chicken feet. That was a pretty unique meal. And so we were talking about that. And then, this whole time we were like, oh, well, we want spaghetti or lasagna or, like hamburgers. And the first thing we did when we got back to the States was we went to a grocery store. And I can remember walking down the aisles of Schnucks in St. Louis and, thinking, oh my, I turned this into an idol. Like I really thought this was better than it is. And we walked out with nothing. Actually, we walked out not buying a single thing.
Really?
Yeah, it was a very interesting kind of thing that ended up happening. And I had asked God, please just give me back college ministry. Like I loved college ministry, and you love the people in college ministry more than you love the people out here in the on the mission field. And in His mercy, we actually got back into college ministry.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So at S&T, they had an opening for a building supervisor, and so I was then I got into leadership development. I got to work with college students again.
And I got my old job back that I'd had as a student assistant, being able to teach English for international students, and which I absolutely loved, and so I was able to do that as job for about 3 years there too.
Yeah, so for about 3 years, we did some study and healing. I mean, it was probably 60% healing, and study in terms of how do you actually help poverty alleviation. And my time at the university, I did a lot of leadership development. And essentially my job was to ask the students, like, what don't you like about the university experience? And like, how can I resource you to change that? So it was really just finding out what the students' vision was and connecting them to the right people on campus to help. And I started to realize, this is what Mozambique needs.
An important part of that is getting people to look at the problem and think of themselves as part of the solution.
Yes.
And so not just to look at the problem and complain, but to look at the problem and start thinking, how could I fix this? And we thought, oh my gosh, like if more Mozambicans had this mentality where like they, instead of just complaining about Mozambique not having enough this or enough that, it's like, how can I be part of the solution? That can be just, world changing.
Yeah. And so we started to look at that. And I think it was through that time that I started to realize the times where we had the most impact back in our time in Mozambique. I started to remember the training sessions. And yeah, I was getting more healed, but I knew that God wouldn't tell us the next step until we were able to give him everything again. Because we'd taken a lot of stuff off the table. I was like, God, I will serve you in a church. Like, I will go to nicer places overseas. But Mozambique was off limits.
We're like, God, you can send us anywhere in the world except Mozambique. Just not there.
So, we were praying, like, tell us the next steps. Tell us the next steps. And I started to even pray, like, God, can I stay here? Can I stay in the States? And felt like he said pretty clearly, yes, but. Right? I was like, well, what's the but?
What is the but?
right. What's going to happen if, like, what's the but? And I knew that if I didn't say yes to him, and if I didn't give him everything again, I would never know what he really had in store. And so it was not long after, we were able to finally say, okay, God, even if you send us back to Mozambique, even if you send us back to the same place we were hurt, we'll follow you. And that's when he started to share a little bit more about, what he wanted us to do. So I told Carla, this is what I think December.
Around December of 2013.
Yeah, December 2013. And I started to feel like we needed to go much sooner than I was prepared for. I was like, okay, we can leave in a year or two. And, I started to feel like I needed to leave that summer. But Carl and I prayed, and then we got a bunch of intercessors together, and we're like, we just want to pray about our next steps. Can you guys pray with us as well? And
that's all we said. We did not say, anything about what we were starting to feel at that point. We just said, help us pray about our future, period. And just the kinds of things that they were sharing were just spot on confirmations, one after another. One person's like, I see you guys going back to Mozambique. And then another one saying like, I see you guys leaving next summer. It's like, I see you guys leaving, but then not getting there when you think you will, and the other things like that. And that totally happened as well. Long story. But, and then all of these other things, and, even confirming the specific Bible verses that we were, thinking of before that. And we're like, whoa, like that's the verse we were thinking of. And you just out of the blue, well, obviously out of, God's spirit, was inspired to share the same verse, and just things like that. Just, we were like, okay, that's confirmation.
Yeah, we actually have a prayer jar where we
wrote
all of those things down, and the team here is just shocked to see every one of those words, and how many of them came true in exactly the way that was stated.
Can I ask a little bit about, so you knew you were supposed to go back, and you had, this experience with training students at the time. Did you sort of have a vision of what Equip Mozambique would look like, or you were just like, we're going to build something, we don't really know what it is, or what did that look like?
More the latter.
Well, way more the latter. So, in fact, we talked to our donors, and we said, we want to learn, and we want to come really humble. I think we understood about base culture, but we didn't understand about real Mozambican culture. And so we told everybody, even though we've been there for 3 years and everybody thought we were the experts in Mozambique, we told them that please don't expect projects or fruit for the next couple of years. We just want to serve in a church and get to know people. Philippians 2 was a really important thing. You must have the same attitude as Christ Jesus. And, he became nothing and, was born, as a baby. And there's something very important when you go overseas about being humble and having to need other people, right? And in any kind of ministry, because real true ministry is interconnection. It's not just one dimensional. It's not you giving to them. There's an exchange happening. It was really powerful to get people that said, okay, yeah, we understand that. And they'd still support us going over. And we had some ideas. I had some ideas on the IT side. And then, kind of, actually, the main thing we were telling people at that time, there was a church that invited us to start a college. And they said that they had the land, they had the teachers, they just needed somebody to run with it. So they had the land, the teachers, the funding. And it ended up like we got there, we got overseas, and they're like, oh, well, just wait a couple months after you get settled in, then we can start with the school. Turns out that the land was about an hour and a half away from the city,
from civilization,
right? From civilization, right? There was there was no plumbing or anything out there. You couldn't even get out there in a rainy season. There was no plumbing, no electricity,
no roads.
No roads, no internet. No.
And we're like, and you want to put a university here. This does not make sense.
and there was one teacher that said, oh, as soon as you start paying me, then I'll leave my other teaching job, right? And I thought, oh my, like this is...
you were not as ready as we thought you were.
But I mean, most of what we were doing was serving and supporting a local church. We were carrying chairs at 2 a.m. after conferences. And I started to see a very different perspective of Mozambique and Mozambicans. There was a tremendous heart and passion for not just faith and spirituality, but for their own country. And I got to see, and when I worked side by side with people, I started to see a lot more kind of what their dreams, hopes, and vision were for Mozambique. And a lot of those people that we served alongside with were our first employees, and the first people that we were able to really help start something pretty incredible for Mozambique.
But I did want to talk about one of the projects. You guys work on so many different projects in Equip Mozambique and spearhead so many different things with your team. But tell us a little bit about the sewing school, how that got started, and what you do with that.
All right. So like we said, when we were, with the other organization that was, focused on handouts, the thing that kept coming back to me was the whole, like, give a person a fish and you feed him for a day, teach him fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And that was something that I connected with another leader at our church. So she had been put in charge of helping widows in the church, and she kept like bringing them food. And then, the next week they were hungry again. And so she came to a leaders meeting and was just like, guys, we need a long-term solution here. Like, how do we get them out of poverty for good? This is not helping. This is not working. And so she saw the same need and wanted to do something, but didn't know how. And so I was like, come to my house. Let's have a cup of tea and dream together. And together we came up with this idea for a skills training school. And I was like, well, like, again, looking at what do you have in your hands? What are your fish and your loaves? I was like, well, I have this hobby of sewing. Would that be useful? And she was like, that would be perfect. And so she went and she found 3 rusty, old, antique, ancient hand crank sewing machines that we could borrow. And she found 10 students, these, widows in the community that were just absolutely desperate. One of them was crippled and would just, kind of barely be able to walk up to class with her little cane. And the sewing school was born. Like, we just met in the back of the church on those borrowed sewing machines, and God started doing amazing things in their lives. I saw them getting healed from the inside out as they started like being creative and using their hands and making something beautiful, and all of a sudden themselves feeling beautiful. And, for the first time, like, wow, I can do something with my life. And that just became so inspiring. And even one of the ladies from that very first class that I taught, in the back of the church there, she became a teacher that has now helped multiple generations of other ladies learn, because she was so transformed, and then she wanted to pass that on to others. And I love getting to meet, I call them our like granddaughters and great granddaughters. Like when I meet, it's like, oh, I taught Maria, and then Maria taught Fatima, and then Fatima taught Christine, and Christine, like it's just amazing. I get to meet all these people that is like, oh my gosh, like this has just spread like wildfire. And the sewing school, that the way it is now, that has evolved over 10 years that we've been running it, the way it is now, it's about a year-long program. The ladies that come in, and we realize that, like I was talking about with Helping Hurts, that poverty is not just they're poor. It's that they have these broken relationships and they need a holistic approach. And so we're not just teaching them sewing. We do Bible study and prayer and counseling with them to heal their relationship with God, because many of them feel absolutely abandoned by God because of their life situations. And so to heal that belief that I am a child of God and I matter, that relationship with their self-esteem, their relationship with each other. Many of them are absolutely just cast aside and despised in their communities. So to come to a place where they have a healthy community is just so life transforming. There were some times that we couldn't even get them to go home at the end of the day. We're just like, ladies, we're locking the doors. We're turning off the lights. They're like, but this is home to us. And like, they didn't want to go back to their neighborhoods where people would be just, hurling insults at them. They want to be where they feel loved. And we're like, oh, well, it's really hard, but we still have to close the door. And so yeah, providing this holistic approach to pulling them out of every level of their poverty, every level of their broken relationships, and providing what we how we see the word shalom in the Bible, which is more than just peace, it is wholeness. He's taking all these broken parts and he's making someone whole again. And that is what we'd love to see happen through the sewing school.
Yeah, and just to add, like, I mean, a lot of this we stumbled onto. Like, Carla started with a passion, and we did so many things wrong. But so much of what the sewing school is now is just continuing to, okay, well, let's try this. And there are so many things we learned from the ladies. Like, we didn't realize how important a strong community of victorious women was around you. But now it's not the leadership that does most of the counseling; it's the other students. And so that was a real key thing. The first time when you sell a product that you made with your own hands, most people cry. And we didn't realize that, sales could be healing, but they're like, this is something that I made that other people valued. And after not feeling valued for so long, there's definitely a healing that ends up happening there. And a lot of it was learning along the way, right? It was an adventure in Shalom, right? And not just, me and Carla, but Carla and this group of ladies, right? All saying, okay, what can we do? What do we have? How can we grow it?
Yes. Oh, I can't wait to visit and see all this in person.
Yes.
So yeah, let's talk just for a second on what's going on this week, just to give people a glimpse into what the life is like at Equip Mozambique.
Yeah, we didn't even really talk about so much of the projects that we're doing right now, but I got a team of 2 people in northern Mozambique. They had to take 4 airplanes to get there, but they are teaching an entire kind of agribusiness network of farmers how to digitize the purchasing and the educational elements of what they do. And so we call that the farm agent management system. So that's one thing that's
developed from scratch.
Yeah, we developed it from scratch with a team of Mozambican programmers, right? To solve Mozambican problems. So it's local solutions to local problems. We also did a leadership retreat this week. So we did some kind of review of this last year and started planning next year.
SWOT analysis.
Yes. Yeah. We did SWOT analyses and seeing, how we're going to bring some of the stuff that's going on in Zimbabwe to Mozambique, how we're going to bring some of the stuff in Mozambique to Zimbabwe. And yeah,
is right here.
Yeah, Zimbabwe's right next door,
Yes.
and we've
refer to the map.
Yes, refer to the map. We've got Equip Zimbabwe going on as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a couple things that we've been doing.
Yes, and just so people who are watching know, we are going to talk about all the different projects they do, but we're just taking snapshots right now to give everybody a feel of some of the different things they're working on. Well, this has been wonderful, you guys. It truly has. Is there anything, maybe a takeaway you want to leave your audience with for this particular episode, this particular part of your story?
Just step out in faith. You don't have to know everything, right, in order to step out and to take that next step with God. In fact, if you know everything, then you don't need Him walking alongside you. Right, so I would say step out, even if you might not know where He's calling you.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, don't focus on the need, focus on what God has given you. And, there is so much wealth to be had in that, to be able to focus on how He has blessed you instead of looking as like, well, I don't have this training, or I don't have that ability, or I don't have this resource. Just say, well, what do you have? Yeah. And that can just be life-changing to focus on what has God already given you and how can He multiply it. We think we need to divide our stuff to meet all the needs, but He wants to multiply it to meet the needs.
Wonderful. Well, to everyone watching, this has been our very first episode of Adventures in Shalom. Yes. And there are so many ways to get connected with Equip Mozambique, as well as support their incredible vision. So there's a couple different ways you can go to their website. It's equipmoz.org. They also have social, so it's at Equip Moz on Instagram and Facebook. Is that right? Mm-hmm. For our U.S. side, they have several in Portuguese, but for those who are in the U.S. watching, it's at Equip Moz. And if you go to equipmoz.org, there's links to give to them. And so definitely check out if this is speaking to you and in different ways. Sometimes Jon and Carla have spoken to me directly into my own entrepreneurship, and there's just ways to support their ministry because it's so vast in every way that they disciple. So we just encourage you to look at equipmoz.org to find out more and to donate. Until next time, keep adventuring.
Yeah.
Right. Bye.